The first Sangiti or first council took place immediately after the death of Buddha, 1 or 2 years afterwards, at the place of Rajgir, which was also called as Giri Vraja, which was the Magadha capital at that time. And the patron was Ajatashatru. He is the one who was the patron, and then president was Mahakashyap. Mahakashyap was one of the great Buddhist scholars at that time. बुद्धा के जो फेमस इंपॉर्टेंट स्कॉलरली फॉलोअर्स थे उसमें से एक महाकश्यप था. And there is story, many story about Mahakashyapa. We don't need to know specific life story of him, but the council was convened immediately after the death of Buddha, so that they wanted to avoid any misinformation about Buddha's teachings. In the council, the two important books were compiled. One is Sutta Pitaka and other is Vinaya Pitaka. Sutta is Sutra, Buddha's teachings. The teachings of Buddha are there in Sutta Pitaka. Vinaya is discipline, so how the Sangha should be organized, how bhikkhus should behave. Those ethical conduct rules about Sangha are given in the other group of books that is called Vinaya Pitaka. So we have Sutta Pitaka and Vinaya Pitaka. A person called Ananda, who was Buddha's cousin, उसके बारे में बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग कहानी है. उसने कहा मैं नहीं बताऊंगा आपको, फिर उसने कहा मैं बताऊंगा, लोगों ने चाहा आओ, फिर कुछ प्रॉब्लम हुआ, लोगों ने कहा हम आपको नहीं बुलाएंगे. So even during the council, Ananda will come, will he not come? Will he be allowed to come? Will he not be allowed to come? A lot of drama happened. Ultimately, somehow it got resolved. He came and he recited. He was with Buddha for a long time, so he knew what Buddha taught. So he told everybody, Buddha ने ये कहा था. लोगों ने फिर उसको collect किया. Upali was actually a barber. So he came from so-called lower caste. And he had heard Buddha telling about this Vinaya. So उसने जो कहा लोगों ने लिखा वहाँ पे बनाया, that became Vinaya Pitaka. Now Buddha himself is said to have said in Mahaparinibbana Sutta, whatever Dhamma and Vinaya I have pointed out and formulated for you, that will be your teacher when I am gone. Same thing in Sikhism, Guru Maniyo Granth. 10वें गुरु के बाद ग्रंथ गुरु हो गया. Same thing here also. It was not a granth, but it was his teaching and discipline. Both these things. So this is the major achievement of the first Sangiti or first council of Buddhism. The second council took place almost a century later, or not century but a few decades later, at Vaishali. Vaishali was temporarily Magadha capital at that time. We discussed yesterday. The king was Kalashok and the president was Sabakami. So this column of president is the column of those who are Buddhist scholars who preside over the Sangiti or council. Now the reason that this thing was brought was because there was some disagreement over Vinaya rules. Now what was the disagreement? There are actually Dasha Shila, 10 rules which are important in Buddhism, of which 5 are major and 5 are minor. And these 10 rules were gradually sought to be diluted by a section of monks. And therefore there was disagreement about whether to follow them, whether to not follow them. अब बुद्धा ने ये खुद कहा है, ये मेरे विनया है, these are my rules of discipline, but as time changes, if you want to change minor rules, you can adjust. You have the flexibility, you will take call. But the major rules, you should not change. That is what Buddha had said. But what he did not say which is major, which is minor. Ab confusion. So that is a theological kind of context, but historical context is also there. Within these decades, Buddhism has now started to spread outside Bihar. And once it goes into new region, new cultures get under it. They bring their own ideas, new geographies, new societies, new living patterns. So the rules which Buddha constituted in Bihar, they are not equally applicable to all cultures across all India. You have to keep evolving. For example, Buddha would say, आप कपड़े मत पहनो. वो नहीं बोलता है, ऐसे ही बोल रहा हूँ. जैनिज्म की बात ले लेते हैं, कपड़े मत पहनो. अब can Jainism tell that to Himalayan people? तिब्बत में जाके कपड़े मत पहनो. Impossible. So if Tibetan people have to become Jain, they cannot be Digambar. So rule has to change, evolve. आप intention समझो. Same thing happened with Buddhism. Buddhism started spreading, new people, new ideas, new regional cultures came in. Friction started. So to settle the friction, this council was called in. Ultimately, the dispute was not settled and the faction started. So you have factionalism. This is called as sectarianism, sect formation. The sect in here is called as schism. 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 सो स्किज्म बनते, सेक मतलब भेद होता है, टुकड़े पड़ते हैं. तो such kind of thing is called schismatic behavior. In any organized religion, maybe it Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Jainism, schisms तो normal है, होते ही, right? Once you start at one point, you develop, you differentiate. That's part of nature. So schism होता है. In tradition, it is called a Sangha Bheda. Sangha Bheda is a typical traditional name for this kind of thing. Now, what was that schism that developed? You have two important schisms coming up after the second council as a consequence of second council being not successful to resolve the problem and find the middle ground. What was that? Sthavirvadin and Mahasangika. So Sthavirvadin were minority. They are old school people, orthodox, do not change any rule. They are elders, but they are minority in number. And you have Mahasangikas who are majority, because many of the new converts, new Buddhists are populous, and they want rules to be relaxed. They are Mahasangikas. They form a breakaway group with justified departure based on majority, because Buddha Sangha organization is democratic one. It is based on Gana Sanghas. वहां पे तो यहाँ पर डिसीजन मेकिंग, इट्स अ पॉलिटी ऑफ ऑर्गन. इफ यू हैव स्टडीड क्रिश्चियनिटी वुड नो you have church polity, ecclesiastical polity as they call it. So the church is organized in different way, how decisions are taken. It is different in Protestantism and different in Catholicism. But you have some kind of decision making authority structure. In Buddhism, there is no Catholicism. It means there is no single pope sitting at the top. That concept doesn't. Every sangha and every monastery is independent of each other. Collectively, they may have some sect, but there is no head of sect. वो होता नहीं बुद्धिज्म में. तो एवरीबडी हैज अथॉरिटी. तो सदियों में एक दो बार मिलते हैं, संगति होती है, दे टेक सम कॉल, देन दे गो बैक टू देयर ओन संघा. So that is the point. So these people said we are majority, now we are telling this is a rule, it should change, so it should change. But नहीं हुआ तो इनको निकाल दिया गया. So we have these two groups forming. Both went on to develop their own systems, each claiming to have preserved the true teachings of the Buddha. One would say हमने वही शब्द फॉलो किए जो बुद्धा ने कहे थे. Other would say we are going by the essence of Buddhism. उस असली मतलब तो ये था. Gradually the differences became wider than the original Vinaya and about the nature of Buddha. So points of difference that once emerged went on increasing. It did not remain confined only to the 10 Vinaya rules. But what was Buddha, nature of Buddha, and all other questions of theology became part of debate. And with that, multiple opinions were formed. More the opinions, more the factions. So after that, gradually we have 18 groups emerging. They are called 18 Nikaya groups. 18 Nikaya groups. So we have 18 different sects of Buddhism that emerged gradually after second council. Not immediately as a consequence of second council, but over time after second council. Now I have a group over here, a map over here for you. Here you can see all the 18 groups. First Sangha, which got breakaway into Mahasangika and Sthavirvada. Later on, they also got broken up into many subgroups. You do not have to remember these names. These names I myself took a lot of time and efforts to find out, because alag books have different lists of these 18 sects. So it is very confusing. The philosophy overlaps, the issues of differences, they are too much for us to follow, and even historians don't know everything. So I have some idea of every group, but it is not required for our preparation. So I will just write down some names for you, read some names. Mahasangika gradually broke up into Chaitika, Chaitya, those who take more focus on architecture. We have Lokottaravad, Loka Uttaravad, those who talk of the transcendental nature of Buddha. Just look at the word, that's all. You have Kukutika or Gokulika, based on whatever the thing is. You have Eka Vyavaharins. You have Sarvastivada, Sarva Astivada, सब कुछ है, reality exists, सर्व अस्ति, सब कुछ है. So बुद्धा ने कहा था है नहीं. तो evolution देखो फ्लॉट का कैसे हो रहा है. In Sthavirvad we have again Vibhajyavad. Vibhajya is Vibhajan, so analysis. Pudgal mein jao, Pudgalvad is next. It became so in different parts of India at different types. These different philosophies emerged. We don't even know which emerged when, in which region. There is a lot of confusion. We don't need to go there. And they also again divide into more groups. Sarvastivād got into Kāśyapiya, Mūla Sarvastivād, Sautrantika, Vaibhashika, Vibhajyavad into Theravād. This Theravād is nothing but your Hinayan. So when you say Hinayan is old religion of Buddha, actually it is not so. It is Ther matlab senior. Hinayan senior. But what Theravād has come out of Vibhajyavad, which came out of Sarvastivād, Thaviravad, that came out of first Sangha. So एक chain of evolution है. इसको रटना नहीं है. Don't memorize this. Just understand. But I will come to this table in just a bit while. Again, let me go back to our story of councils. So 18 groups emerged likewise. By the time of Ashoka, the problem became people got very angry. They started fighting. In case of Ashoka, you have the nationwide evolution of Buddhism. Ashoka made Buddhism very important across India. So all the more people came into it. And not only that, Buddhism became so popular, it got huge government funding. Funding आएगा, corruption आएगा. Those people who are not into Buddhism, but they just want funding, वो भी Buddhism बन जाएंगे, Buddhist बन जाएंगे. तो different tendencies, different jealousies, different interest would come in. Ashoka ने कहा ये सब बकचोदी रोको. Let us settle all these things. So he called third Buddhist council. That is at Pataliputra. A place called Kukkutagram and etc. There are some places in Pataliputra and around. वहाँ पे ये council हुई थी. Moggalliputta Tissa was its president. What happened in that? To purify the Buddhist movement, end corruption in Sangha and oust heretical views. Those who are not following the traditional views are heretics. उनको निकालो. कहानी ये है that Ashok not only ousted these heretic Buddhists from the Sangha, he rather ousted them from India altogether. कहानी है, क्या पता हुआ था नहीं हुआ था. He disrobed them. You will be given white श्वेत वस्त्र. आपको बुद्ध कपड़े, भिक्षु के कपड़े क्या होते हैं? सैफरन होते हैं. येलो रोब, येलो एंड सैफरन रोब. You will be given white robes. मतलब आपके अधिकार छीने गए from being Sangha part. You are expelled out of Sangha. So that is one thing. Second thing that happened in that third council was compilation of Abhidhamma Pitaka. Of the three Pitakas, the third one is this. Now Abhidhamma Pitaka is nothing but a compilation of 7 books. In that, one book is called Kathavastu, a very important book, Kathavastu. Kathavastu is written by the president himself, Moggalliputta Tissa. And Kathavastu is important for our understanding of history because it is in Kathavastu book. The president has taken paramarsha or taken a cognizance of all these 18 Nikaya groups one by one, explained their viewpoint and refuted those viewpoints and defeated those viewpoints. आप क्यों गलत हो, फिर आप क्यों गलत हो, फिर आप क्यों गलत हो. So that Kathavastu book tells us which were these 18 Nikaya that were existing at that time. Otherwise, we would not have known that. So Kathavastu was written by Moggalliputta Tissa, which is one of the 7 books which form Abhidhamma Pitaka. Now the term Abhidhamma is actually a very complicated one. Abhidharma. It is a highly philosophical idea. So, and that is beyond our ken. So usko chhod dete. But it is about philosophical reformulation of Buddha's teachings. The third thing that happened in this council was missionaries sent outside India by Ashoka. Ashoka sent missionaries everywhere. So we have that as well. Then Ashoka had ousted some people, but he has not solved the problem. So some people still continue holding on to their beliefs. Gradually, after Ashoka, Buddhism starts spreading in northwest India also. Greeks come, some of them become Buddhists. It is the time when India is entering into the global trade at massive level, Silk Route trade. अब Silk Route के लोगों को क्या करना है? भिक्षु. They have their own idea. They are rich people. Their problems are different. So the philosophy that developed, that suited them was different. That is why you have gradual emergence of Mahayana. So Hinayan Mahayana emerged, or rather solidified, after third council.